Our Bible study. They're getting a nice. Oh, my mic is working. Good. They were getting a nice view of my jacket. Good catch. I found an extra copy and he was asking for one. So ask and you receive. Page 34. Is that where we're at?
The Woes.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah. Great.
Well, if I keep my paper.
Oh, yeah. Smarter than me. So, we're going through the three woes. Nope, the four woes. And that's the end of Luke chapter 6, verses 20, not the end, but like 24 to 26 right there. And there's four woes. And I guess the question that comes up is if you've looked at them before, what do you think of when you hear the four woes? It's a free.
Like bad things happen?
Bad things.
That you're better off to be talented than out. It seems like everything that we work for, they're saying you're better off not to.
Right.
Have.
Well, and so what's the issue there? Everything we work for, you're better off not having. Well, what's the issue then?
Not to work.
Yeah, there it is. All right, we're done.
Maybe just focusing on earning,
Right. Yeah.
No, that's the
Yeah.
desire.
Right. Well, so I guess the first one, right? Well, I guess we'll go one by one because I don't think, like, what are you who are laughing? I mean,
but that's working at keeping a positive.
right. Well, I think, and that's why I think we got to break these down one by one because Jesus isn't saying here, if you laugh, that's it. You've laughed. No, believe it or not, right now. Like, it's like, well, no.
They give it more than we. They give it pay every time you laugh.
Right. It's definitely not like that at all. And so I think it's important we do discuss these woes and discuss them individually before we kind of just jump in and say, oh, well, that's what they are. So let's read the first one. Who wants to read the first one? Okay, thank you.
Woe to you who are rich, for you have received your comfort.
Okay. So, huh? Right. What does it mean to? Yeah. I guess if you want to, there's always somebody richer, right?
Really rich.
That one is rich. Yeah. Oh, and even here in our town, like I hear about people who have money, if you will. Yeah, to be less than tactful when I say that, because it's hard to say that like, it's hard to say that without like making it sound like there's envy. There's not envy, but I hear about people who like, oh, so and so is loaded. I won't say any names, and then I talk to them, and they're not. They've managed their money well, but I know people that live in Rhode Island with more money. And then when I talk to them, they know people that have more money too. And so like, there's always going to be somebody who has, well, unless you get to Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, there'll always be somebody who has more until you get to him. Then at that point. So if we look at it like that, does that mean just Jeff Bezos? That's it. Everybody below him, you good? He's the richest. Woe to him. I don't know if it's that as much as it is with all of these woes. You're going to start to see it is that the woes aren't like these curses, if you will. Like I think that's something to start with. Like when Jesus says, "Woe to you who are rich," he's not saying, "Hey, every rich dude, Sorry, you've not made it. Everybody who's ever laughed, nope, it ain't happening. Those who are filled, those who receive praise, sorry. It's not like that, but I think it's really a reminder of, where are we getting our satisfactions in life? It's very easy to pray when you're looking up. Does that make sense? Like if you're in the pits of life, when you're down on life, it's easy to be a Christian when you're poor. It's easy to be a Christian when you're in prison. It's that idea of like, you're so desperate for anything that of course you'll reach out to God. And so it's that reminder that it's not just the low valley, but even in the high point, are you still seeking him? So for example, if you're rich, if you are black, we're rich as Americans, right? Like when you go to other countries, or when you hear of stories from other countries, or when you talk to missionaries, they talk about when you give somebody food and how like blown away they are by like how much food it is. I think about the Stuff the Bus actually this year, or this past year, last year. We did with the school, or maybe over the summer, but we only spent like $200. The church did, and they were like blown away when we pulled up, and we were just like, "Yeah, all these bags are yours." Like it was like 7 bags of groceries, and everybody else had been just kind of given, here's a little bit, and they were like blown away because in those times of need, it's like those who have not are desperate to have. And so like when I think of like other countries often, or events like that, people are so grateful for just like, wow, you have so much. Where to us, it's like, not really. Like we may not think it. At our house today, Monday we went, but at our house, I'm saying today as in right now, but Monday we went to the store and we got like 20 boxes of rice. Like to us, it's like, yeah, okay, that's just normal for us. We eat a lot of rice. That's like a month's supply. To other people, that might be like, that's like a year, like that's blowing their mind. You get a year's worth of rice in your shopping cart in one day. And so it's a reminder that wherever you are in life, don't be comfortable in that moment of life. Don't be comfortable, oh, you're rich now. Don't be comfortable, because at that point, once you've hit your comfort, once you've hit that level of, I don't need God anymore, there's an issue. And that's what happens to some who gather about resources. It's like, well, I mean, even today, again, here in our country, nowadays, how many people have been sick this year? How many people have prayed before they went to the doctor? You don't go to the doctor either. Well, that's the other issue, right? The other issue in America, the other issue in the United States is that health insurance, if you have it. But it's one of those things that because we have access to healthcare, our first thought isn't like if Joshua Zeal had a snake bite, for example, my first thought isn't, let me pray that the snake bite goes away. My first thought is, how fast can I get to the ER? I may pray on the way. Let me rephrase that. I will pray on the way. But my first thought is, let me get him some medical treatment immediately. When he had the seizures, what was it, almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, or a year ago, whenever it was, my first thought was, how fast can I get to the ER, the Thai ER? And we flew there. Granted, I think I called Corey up and said, make sure, let people know to pray, because we wanted prayer. But my first thought wasn't, all right, let me get the anointing oils and pray. And it's not because we don't believe in healing. We believe God still heals, but we don't have that desperation. We have a comfort. And it's similar to that. So it's this idea that rich might be the wrong term here as much as it is, because when we think rich, we think money bags. We think, the guy from Monopoly with the monocle, when really it's saying, woe to you who don't need God because you're comfortable, that you've outgrown him. And it should make us say, oh man, I hope that we're not missing it. The next thing is, woe to you who are now full, for you will be hungry. This is another one that, again, it describes your comfort. I did talk about food already, but with that idea of, what are you who are full, for you will be hungry, also has that double spiritual meaning. If you're satisfied in life, oh man, life is good. And when I say satisfied, I mean, I don't mean that you shouldn't be satisfied in the things of God, complacent in the things of God, but I mean, you wake up and you're like, I did it today. I have a good career. I have a good spouse. I have a good family. I have good air I breathe. I have a house over my head, a roof over my head. In that mindset, if you take credit for everything and pat yourself on the back, well, then spiritually you're going to end up being empty. Spiritually, you're going to be starving because the physical you've taken care of. And when you've taken care of just physical, this is something a lot of people don't grasp. When you take care of just the spiritual or just the physical, the soul man goes hungry. That innermost being within us, and again, you can define it as a soul, you can define it as your innermost spirit, you can define it as the innermost part of humanity, whatever. There's all these different philosophical and theological terms for it. But if you look back the past, 3,000 years, I'm not just looking at theology, I'm just looking at humanity in general. There's this reality that it's been lost in the last 50 years or so, that physically we can't satisfy the soul. We can't fill the soul. So the things that, like you said, it almost speaks against work, right? Well, you're 9 to 5. Yeah, there's aspects of it that satisfy us. Like, I think depending on your 9 to 5, I'm sure teaching satisfies the soul, much like preaching does, much like ministering does. And that's a good thing when it does. But our goal, like, we weren't created just to sit here and make our salary for the year and pay taxes. Like, that wasn't the purpose we were created for. And often, at least today, I'm looking at this from a very modern lens, but at least today, we are at the point where it's like, yeah, I'm satisfied with what I did this year, the past year. And it's like, well, what did you do? Well, I went to work, and then I had, weekends off, and I took a vacation. Where'd you go on vacation? Upstairs. And I'm even talking about myself here for a moment, because as spiritually fulfilling as pastoring is, if I'm not feeding my soul, if I'm reading this just to preach and teach it, I'm not feeding myself. I'm getting satisfied through the physical and not the spiritual. And when you actually begin to look at the body, the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, the physical aspect, and the spiritual aspect, they're all linked. So when you're out of whack spiritually, you may not realize it because you're fulfilling yourself physically, but eventually that hole that's there continues to gnaw. It continues to go at it. So it's something we have to keep in mind, when we're, are we so full of ourselves, or are we so full of the physical that we've forgotten that, or even are we so, this is what Calvin writes, are we so plunged in the carnal pleasures of life we forgot about the spiritual? It's the same with laughter. This idea of laughter, I want to clarify, because not only in my own reading of it, but in my own research of it, God is not condemning people who laugh. I want to point this out. And this is why I said I want to go verse by verse so you would see. He's not condemning everybody who's rich. He's condemning those who put their status as rich. He's not condemning those who are filled. He's condemning those who only fill themselves physically, not filling themselves spiritually. Same here. He's not condemning those who laugh. This is really this idea of, hold on.
But can you ever be fully spiritually full? Because if you
No.
yeah,
Right.
It's like always needing water.
Right.
It's like always needing food.
There's two ideas. One is that we can become spiritually full and our cup overfills. It's this idea that the cup runneth over. And as we're being filled, we're pouring out into others. So if I'm satisfying my soul, well, that spreads to Rachel, that spreads to Amelia Ann, that spreads to Joshua Zeal, that spreads to the church as a whole. And if I'm empty, it ends up being that when I pour out, it's just dust. So there's that aspect of it. But the other aspect is, the reality is, our spirit, our soul should never be quenched, because it means we've become satisfied with God. But we trick ourselves, and this is what I mean on the physical aspects of life, and it goes into the laughing part as well. These carnal pleasures that we may have. Football's an easy one to pick on. When a football team wins that you're a fan of, there may be that moment of an ecstasy, if you will. Does that make sense? And this euphoria of, wow, they won. Well, what's that do? It tricks us with the dopamine into thinking, I'm fulfilled today. We won. Last I checked, everybody I've ever heard, every fan that I've ever heard say we won, did not have a contract from that team. My favorite is when I see, well, not anymore, but when I saw Patriots fans saying we won, and I would tell people, like, what position did you like? It's like, I didn't know you were out there.
It was the moral support.
Yeah. Well, even that one's funny too, like the moral support. You were watching it on TV. At least if you're in the crowd, right? Like yesterday we went to the soccer game and the girls won their last game of the season. And we were celebrating because we were there in person, the modified girls. So at least it made sense that we were celebrating. It makes no sense when and I'm guilty of it too, because the carnal pleasure rises up and it almost makes us think, oh, this euphoric moment, because it makes us part of something, not realizing we're filling the hole that can't be filled. We're trying to quench the fire, like we were talking about, that can't be quenched. But you're still dumbing it down, if you will. You're dimming that fire. Actually, that's funny. The camera.
When you're a couch coach, so that you're yelling at the TV, telling those players or the coach what he should be doing.
Well, then see, those guys, they get paid more than I do to be there. They're the backseat GMs. That's like, I posted on Facebook. I'm guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it. I posted on Facebook a news article because Aaron Boone is rumored to be getting re-signed by the Yankees. And I just put a thumbs down. Like, my opinion don't mean anything to Hal Steinbrenner. It means absolutely nothing. And guess what? The Yankees are going to make millions in the next year. So guess what? Guess what Hal Steinbrenner is thinking? That money's going in the pocket. What does he care if they win or lose? Right. But and that's just one example, right? Like a similar thing can happen in video games. You create this, you have this euphoric moment. It can happen watching movies. It can happen watching TV shows. And that's what this part of the laughter is. And again, not that it should be, not that he's condemning having pleasure. Like I want to point this out too. The Lord isn't sitting there saying, don't enjoy life. Don't do anything. Just, you're supposed to sit in church and pray 24/7. That's it. Well, no, that's not it either. But it's when those moments do happen, if we're not, I think this is part of it, right? If we're not filling ourselves with the things of God, well, the things of the world can easily take over. So this idea of laughing now, those who are laughing now, you'll mourn and weep. It's this idea that if the things of the world are making it so that is like the ultimate enjoyment, then there's an issue. Sunday school lesson I taught with kids, this was a few years ago, obviously, maybe like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I had a kid ask me, how will I be able to play Xbox in heaven? And I just kind of looked at him and I was like, I don't know if you would be able to. And he looked at me like angry. He was PO'd. And I'm like, why? Well, that's like the only thing I enjoy in life. Okay, there's an issue, right? And I talked to the kid. I'm like, there's an issue here. Like if the only thing you enjoy is that, not saying that you can't enjoy these things, but if one thing is your only enjoyment, or if something has become the scriptures say a master of you, then have fun. But that's where you're getting your fun. That's where you're getting your joy. And when Judgment Day comes, it's about priority. If the first thing we do in the morning, actually, I'll again give another personal story here. In January and February, Rachel gave me some money to play in the stock market, and
First thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning to the last thing at night, like barely getting sleep. This was like 3 weeks of it, and I had to say, okay, you know what? We're selling all our stocks. We were making money. Like Rachel was like, "Wow, she was like, you're making a lot of money." I'm like. And I was just like, I had to sell it all because I was like, this is mastering me. This is controlling me. From when I wake up to when I go to sleep, this is all I'm thinking about. It's all I'm pondering about. It's all I'm meditating on. And I'm not even, forget even the things of God for a moment. I'm not even looking at my wife and saying, I love you. I'm looking at her and saying, I wonder if I can get more money for the next stock or the next really gamble. I'm looking at my kids saying, don't distract me right now. I'm trying to make money for your scholarship, for your college fund.
It goes back to the woe rich.
It goes back, right. Woe are the rich. Woe are the rich because you found your comfort. Woe are those who are full. Woe are those who are laughing. When you find your joy, really, those first three is when you find your joy outside of God. And that's something we have to define. What is joy? Not happiness. C.S. Lewis said it. Christianity was not designed to make you happy. A bottle of port was designed to make you happy. Port wine. He was right, though. Like Christianity, this wasn't supposed to be. Jesus didn't say, "Hey, if you follow me, you'll live your best life now, and nothing bad will ever happen." If he said that, the apostles would have been very angry. Did I anger you? I'm sorry. There's no toilet paper. No.
You're on live, huh?
Yeah, everybody in the world now knows. Not only were you going into the bathroom, there's no toilet paper. Yeah, there's paper towel. Don't flush it. Anyways. Whatever. It's perfectly okay.
Donations of toilet paper.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and there's just going to be massive amounts of toilet paper all over the place.
So there's not be shortages of everything.
Well, there's meetings out there right now.
I was trying to get the chat overlay working. Anyways, so if you don't find C.S. Lewis was pointing out, the apostles didn't have good lives. 10 of the original 12 were martyred. One committed suicide. One was boiled alive and then told at 90 years old, go live on an island by yourself, and then wrote the book of Revelation. It wasn't satisfactory life for Christians. The first 300 years, Christianity was very, very illegal in the Roman Empire. And so that's the point Lewis is making. And Lewis was writing this in World War II time when he wrote this quote, when he said this quote. And it's completely true. Like, even now, like, some people are like, oh man, I tried Christianity out, but it didn't make me happy. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of God isn't to make you happy. But there is a joy in the Lord. There is this idea that no matter what happens, like right now, there's a leak at the parsonage. Gary, the water guy, told me it's not an emergency. We'll deal with it in the morning. Guess what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to sit there and look at it and not know what to do, because guess what? I have no clue what I could do anyways. So I'm going to go to sleep tonight knowing that the Lord's in control. And I'm going to wake up tomorrow knowing the Lord's in control. And that's how we should live every moment. It's about finding that realization that because he's in control, I don't have to be troubled. I don't have to be burdened. It's not happiness, but it is joy, if that makes sense. It's not emotion, because emotion is rocking in the wind. Emotion is, what's your day going like? I'll tell you, I was frustrated when I noticed the water, but I wasn't angry. I was frustrated. I didn't lose my joy over it. The last one, woe to you when all people speak well of you, for this is the way their ancestors used to treat the false prophets. This last one, Jesus decides he's just gonna come out and slap everybody. He's saying, if they applaud you, if you get recognition, this is a big one, right? Like after service, I don't know how to react. A lot of people come up to me. That was a good sermon. Gee, did I do something wrong? That was a really good sermon, Pastor. Was it? Like, if you're saying it was, maybe it wasn't a good sermon. I like preaching when... Right, or the rest of them really bad. So now this week, old Sconesy McMuffin decided that this week was a good sermon. It's so odd, like reading this last passage as a minister, because it makes me say, wait a minute. If I get somebody telling me, good job, am I in the wrong? And again, I think we have to read between the lines here and realize it's related again to these first three in a sense, in the fact that what is the big common thread in these first three?
Putting things before God.
Exactly. And so in this last one, this idea of you've been applauded. Woe to you who have been applauded for that's how they treat the false prophets. Well, why are you doing the things that you do? If you're doing it to seek recognition, and this is when you read the other stuff of Jesus, like when you read, when he's like, he says something else where he's like, you've received your reward in heaven. Now that you've looked for your reward here, you've received it. That's what he says, instead of in heaven. When he's talking about those who go in the streets to say, I prayed. So it's similar in that regard, because it's like you're going around instead of doing something because it's the right thing to do, or because your spirit convicts you to do it, or whatever the case may be, you're doing it for the applause. You're doing it for the recognition. You're doing it for he's not saying, because if that's the case, good job, everybody. I just eventual. It can't be that. Are you looking for that gratitude? Are you looking for that applause? Or are you doing it because that's what you're supposed to be doing? Galatians 1:10 refers to this as well, and talks about how the doctrine of God gets corrupted in the gospel preaching because they seek to please men. Paul writes. He says that it's this idea that the flesh rises up, and in the flesh, it's like if you're preaching a good message that people like, you may not be preaching the gospel in a sense, or and it's related a lot with that. That's why I said as a minister, it's a hard thing to kind of swallow, because it's like, well, if I'm preaching something people like, am I just itching their ears? Because it'd be easy for me to come up here on a Sunday, and I know the scriptures to twist, not to not to brag. That's not a brag. I know how to lie. Excuse me. That was live too. Everybody just got a nice shot of me coughing. Gross. Anyways, and the camera just fogged up. But yeah, if I go and I'm doing things just to please people, a people pleasing attitude, what am I actually doing? What am I looking to do? And that's what the false prophets would do. The false prophets would go to the kings and say, instead of calling the king out for their sin, they'd be like, yeah, everything's good here. Like, don't worry, everything will be fine. In Exodus, for example, right? We have false prophets, and we have Moses. So Moses throws a stick on the ground, and then what does it do? And so the prophets of the Egyptians, they throw sticks in the ground, and what do? No, they do turn it. They turn into snakes.
Really?
Yeah.
If it's a false prophet.
And well, then what happens? What's the next thing that happens after the sticks? After the Egyptian sticks get turned into snakes? Huh?
They played the Egyptians.
Nope. Man, you guys didn't read Exodus.
No.
The stick, the serpent of Moses swallows the two snakes. Yeah. So Moses comes to the river Nile. What does he do? At the Nile River. He turns the entire Nile red. It's one of the 10 plagues. And what do the prophets do? Get a little bit of water and say, here, it's red. Elijah he's on a mountaintop, and he's mocking Baal, he's mocking the prophets of Baal, and he challenges them, have your God make fire. So they go and they dance and they're calling for fire, and nothing happens. So then Elijah, it's a drought. Elijah gets water and puts it on the wood. And then he says, all right, God, put it on fire. And it does. And then he calls for rain, and it rains. And these prophets of Baal, they deceived the entire nation. They got the whole nation to follow them. Because the false prophets, this is what it comes down to with what's happening here. The false prophets, or those who please man, will always say the right thing. They'll always make it look right. In fact, we see this in corporate environments. We just see it in life. You see it in school. You have the suck-ups, if you will. Let's just call them what they are. You have the suck-ups out there who will say the right thing and look like they're doing the right thing and act like they're doing the right thing no matter what, because they're trying to advance themselves. And what Jesus is calling out here is saying, if that's all you're looking for, if you're just looking for people to say, good job, that's what the false prophets did. Are you really in good company? And so that's what it comes down to, is like, or do you want to do what is right? Do you want to say what is right? Do you want to act right? Do you want to pursue righteousness, et cetera, et cetera? So these woes, all four of them, to kind of go back to the general overview of them all, are woes against ungodliness. They're woes against the ways of the world. They're not woes like, you can't read them like out of context and just say, woe to the rich, and just walk around. Anytime you see a rich person, whoa, you start seeing people laughing, ha, you're going to hell. You laughed. It's all over. You see fat people. Woe to woe to those who are full. You're going to hell. It's like, no, it isn't that simple. It's much more nuanced than that. And it's really about when you're pursuing the things of the world as opposed to the things of God. Have fun. Because it'll satisfy you enough, but not in the end. It's why there are atheists. It's why there are agnostic. It's why there are non-believers. Because they do get satisfied. Like, they're not quenched. The spirit's not quenched. The soul's not quenched. It's just unhealthy. Honestly, kind of, this is where I'll end it to kind of give you another illustration here. What should we feed our souls?
A relationship with God, His Word.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Help you.
These are all the right answers. There's no, wait a minute. These are all the right church answers.
Trusting in God.
Yep. I'm not going to, this is not a trick one. Like, I'm not going to say, nope, you're wrong. Like, these are, yes.
No, we're looking to see, is there something more?
No. Anybody else want to add anything? These are all good answers.
Well, if you fellowship with a lot of people, it's like a buffet. Right? It's a buffet with all these.
If you fellowship with the right people.
Yeah.
So, okay. Did you say read the Bible?
His Word.
Yeah, read his word. So, can that be counterfeited? Can I read the Quran and feel satisfied? Feel deceived, maybe deceived. From our perspective, deceived, yet satisfied. Can I fellowship with people who are worshiping Satan and have a goat that they're ready to sacrifice? I'm not saying me, but I'm saying just these things can be counterfeited. Look at it from a physical perspective. What are you supposed to eat?
Protein.
So shakes?
No. Oh.
Plus, it doesn't matter what you put into your body
From a spiritual aspect?
for food.
Well,
You said what you eat.
yeah, I think it matters. I think there's a big difference between a hamburger. Like, okay, let's look at 4 different hamburgers. A hamburger that let's say you get organic meat, and then a frozen Bubba burger, and then a canned hamburger, and then a McDonald's hamburger. They're all hamburgers, but isn't one inherently better for you than the other 3?
Depends on how hungry you are.
Depends how hungry you are and how much effort you want to put in. Open up that can. Yeah, right. Like, and so it's like, and that's kind of my point. Is like, there are things that'll, if you're hungry enough, there are things that'll satisfy that hunger. Whether you should be eating processed food or fast food or frozen food or that's another issue in itself, but it's the same on the spiritual level. We have, if I'm being honest, we have fast spiritual food. We have processed spiritual food. We have frozen spiritual food. And we have the real deal. And if you don't know what the real deal tastes like if you've never eaten a hamburger before and I gave you a canned hamburger, would you say it was a bad hamburger, or would you say maybe you don't like hamburgers? It's like me. Okay, so when we went to school, we had a lot of Hawaiian students at our school. What's Hawaii famous for? Spam. I don't know why. I think it has something to do with World War II, but I don't know why. And these guys would try to get me to eat spam and eggs every morning. And I couldn't bring myself to eat it. Like, the idea of processed, canned, is it even ham? They don't even call it ham. They call it spam. Like, I'm not, listen, if you like spam, so be it. I got 3 cans in the closet just in case. You never know. They will survive until the next minister gets voted in after I retire. And I will leave them there for him or her. But you know what I mean? Like, no, I probably am going to opt for like a nice ham at that point. Or at least like the little ham steaks that I can chop up over some gelatinous spam. But again, if you aren't used to the real deal, or if that's all you know, or has that nostalgic taste, it's the same in the spiritual end. If all you've ever known in spiritual life is a false spirit, you're going to be satisfied. And that's kind of what the Lord's point out here is like, don't get satisfied for the wrong thing. I think that's it. I don't know if there's any other questions. Any hate mail can go to 19 Park Avenue. Anybody who's really upset about the spam comments. Otherwise, let's pray. Lord, I thank you. I thank you, oh God, that you are King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I ask that you'd be present in our lives throughout the week. Help us and guide us. Remind us, oh Lord, that you are King and you are our satisfaction in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen. How do I end this?